Well, Razorback fans, we know that fall camp starts up today. We'll have a chance to hear from Sam Pittman. But how is this season going to define his legacy as a college football coach? Well, let's talk about it on today's Locked On Razorbacks podcast.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. I am your host, John Nabors. I am also the host of Inside Arkansas Live, which you can catch every weekday afternoon starting at noon on Inside Arkansas and InsideArkansas.com. Hope everybody's having a wonderful Thursday, as we're going to talk a little bit about things that could be heard from Sam Pittman as well as Ben Souders today, dealing with the Razorbacks and what to expect out of fall camp starting up. We'll also get into some bracketology, because it does crack me up having bracketology in July for Razorback basketball. But we'll get into all of that. But today, I wanted to get into something maybe that's a big picture deal with Sam Pittman and with Razorback football specifically and legacy. Because one of the things that I have always looked at when it comes to coaches, and especially coaches here at Arkansas, and especially in the sense of football, it seems like there's always things that get remembered. And in specific years, specific phrases, specific times, specific deals. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. Sometimes it's on the field, sometimes it's off the field. It's just a matter of what you get remembered as. And I believe that there is a chance, I said this last year, but there's a chance that this could be Sam Pittman's last season as the head football coach of Arkansas. There's a good chance of that. So if that was to happen, and even say that Sam Pittman had a fine year, not good, not bad, just fine, how would Sam Pittman be remembered? Now, to put it into perspective, let's look at the previous coaches that Arkansas's had and what they're remembered for. Chad Morris. I think we all know what. The worst coach of all time. Before that, Brett Bielema. Good coach that came in and had some moments, had some times, was able to do some nice things, but kind of had some issues to where it just tanked and went away. Wasn't built to be and deal with the SEC consistently. For that, I'm not counting John L. Smith. Bobby Petrino. We all know about Bobby Petrino. Motorcycle accidents, probably what he's going to be most known for, but as far as his coaching and ability, he's one of the premier coaches, not one of the best coaches Arkansas has ever had in their history. Houston Nutt. We all know how I feel about him. But Houston Nutt at least had energy. He was at least a guy that was a sideline, hyping everybody up for the big games, but would fall a little bit short in the games that they should take care of business in. The list goes on and on. But the point is that you always have different, or at least for the most part, everyone has their own idea and their own belief on how certain coaches are remembered. And there's other coaches that, or maybe you're here for such a short period of time that you've deleted it out of your memory. But Sam Pittman's not going to be that. Regardless, Sam Pittman is going to be the head coach of the Arkansas Razorback football team for 6 seasons. That's a long time. Brett Bielema made it to 5 years. Petrino made it 4. Houston Nutt made it 10. I believe Danny Ford made it 5. Chad Morris only made it 2. But the point is that through that stretch, here in the modern era, Sam Pittman is going to be the longest tenured coach in Arkansas since joining the SEC, besides Houston Nutt. So what is he going to be remembered? How is he going to be remembered? Well, I believe this year is going to dictate a lot of that. They always say, what's your lasting impression from your final season? It's what you get remembered by, recency bias or any sort of thing like that. Maybe the most recent deal is what is the longest lasting memory, however you want to put it. But to me, this season is going to decide if people have a positive outlook or a negative outlook on Sam Pittman. He is right there on truly the average. Right in the middle. He definitely is better and has done such a much better job than Chad Morris's predecessor. And given the circumstances of his resume when he came in to be the head coach of Arkansas, he's done better than most people even anticipated. Let's be honest about that. I'm giving credit where credit is due. I liked Sam Pittman. I wanted him hired when they did make the hire. But there was no doubt that there was some head-scratching concerns because you've never been a head coach before, and you're coming off of your worst time ever. We came right in and won 3 SEC games, something that you hadn't won 3 SEC games in 3 years. He did it in 1 season with arguably the most difficult schedule of all time. He was able to accomplish that, and at least to give some sort of pride and excitement back to Arkansas. Where it wasn't the best of years, but certainly a year that, given the circumstances, given the COVID stuff that was going on, 10 SEC games and everything, I think most people are like, hey, solid, good. It's kind of exciting again. And then the next season going 9-4, which was incredible. Think back to that 2021 season. You pulled off some things that you were struggling with for so long. I mean, you beat Texas A&M. First time in like a decade. You kicked the crap out of Texas in that home game. Your first major home game since post-COVID. And, I mean, you might as well have had COVID going on during the Chad Morris years because the crowds are pretty empty. But you're able to do that. You're able to beat LSU and get the Golden Boot back. You were able to beat Missouri. You were able to win games that you hadn't won very often. And then still, in spite of that, have to go to Georgia, who was the best team in the country, and give Alabama all that they wanted. Like, you did some great things to where I felt like at the time, you were in the driver's seat of doing something special here at Arkansas. Like, Sam Pittman could have been the biggest diamond in the rough coach that ever existed. And looking good. And then the next season, you bring a lot of pieces back. Yeah, you added some big-time transfers like Drew Sanders and Jaden Hazelwood and Matt Landers and Landon Jackson and Dwight McGlothern. Like, you added in all of these pieces that were really big-time additions. The recruiting was really good at the high school level, and you returned your starting quarterback, your running backs, everybody there. But then you went 6-6. Look back on that year, and I know that Jalen Catalon got hurt, and that was big. But, man, there was no reason really for Arkansas to struggle like they did that year. But you went 6-6. All right, so how do you follow it up? Your offense coordinator bounces out, decides to go to TCU, which I still felt like it was a mistake at the time. But he moves on, and you bring in a new coordinator, Dan Enos. Did not work out, we all know. Then you go 4-8. Awful season, 1-7 in conference play. It was a disgusting display at the end. You got destroyed on your home field in the final 2 home games in the SEC by Auburn and Missouri. You lost a game 7-3 to Mississippi State, the worst team in the SEC. And it was a disaster. So how do you get out of that? Because I felt like at the time, you might need to fire Sam Pittman because you don't go from 9 wins to 6 wins to 4 wins and then everybody be hunky-dory with it. But the saving grace that he had was with Bobby Petrino and making the hire. When he did that, it at least alleviated a lot of that angst and that anger towards the situation Arkansas found themselves in, saying, all right, hey, listen, the prodigal son comes home. And because, be honest, folks, if Sam Pittman would have not have hired Bobby Petrino, I don't know if anybody would have felt good at all. I don't think anybody would have felt like, all right, well, let's just see how this plays out. It was pretty angry of how things ended. And so he follows that up with this last season, going 6-6. Wasn't great. Wasn't horrible. It's better, but just a little bit better. And there were some tough losses that you suffered. And then given the offseason that you had where you lost for the second year in a row, 30-plus players, some of your best players, players you wanted to keep, and who you added back into the mix were players that could end up being all right, but still a lot of unknowns, a lot of uncertainties. That's why people feel the way that they feel right now about the current situation with Arkansas and Sam Pittman. It's not awful, but it ain't great. It's not been a disaster, but there's no feeling of this going in the right direction and you going to be accomplishing something that you haven't before or making that huge jump to that 8 to 9 win range again. I mean, I'm hopeful for that, but there's just no reason to believe that at this point. So I went through the recap of it, and now I come to this season. Again, regardless of how you feel about Sam Pittman, there's a good chance this is his last season. Whether it's because he wants to retire, whether it's because they want to move on, all of that. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, this is the pressure that Sam Pittman has. If he cares about what people think about him, which I know he does, and he cares about what legacies that he's leaving behind, I felt like leaving after last season may have been the best case scenario for him because he at least didn't leave the program in shambles and it was bad, awful, terrible. He at least bounced back a little bit and showed some fight. Well, he didn't get fired this past season, so now it's like, okay, you got to do something now to convince people that the right decision by Jurecek, the right decision by everybody to keep you on for another year, given the circumstances, you got to prove to everybody that you are the right man for the job and that it was a great decision by them to stay on another year. You have to prove that to people. Now, is it a certain win total? I think that that's always a dangerous game when you just put a win total on it because not every win total is the same. It's all created differently. But to me, if Sam Pittman goes out there and does the thing that could be incredible of winning 7, 8 games this season and then retires, that is going to be a good lasting memory where everyone, myself included, will look back on the Sam Pittman legacy that he had at Arkansas saying, you know what? It wasn't always great, but he did a pretty dadgum good job. And he was definitely somebody that made you proud to be a Razorback fan and be a proud person to watch Razorback football because given the circumstances, he was still able to be competitive, to be not a laughing stock, not an embarrassment, not just a low key whatever. It was a very admirable, solid showing. And let's see where we turn the page next and what it brings. And of course, if he goes 4-8, 5-7, then everybody, myself included, will be like, this was just, it wasn't it. He had one good year, essentially just one good year out of 6. And that one good year was very early in the tenure. And now you just feel like you're back to square one. Now you feel like you're in a position to where, is it as bad as what it was when Sam Pittman took over? No. But it's certainly a program that is more known for its losing than its winning. And then if you just go like 6-6, I'll at least look at it as being like, all right, fine. Let's see what happens next. Point is that this year can make a huge difference. Sam Pittman understands that. He understands the pressure. He's just got to be able to do something about it and do something with it. And I hope he does. I hope he does everything right. I hope they have a big year. And I hope the legacy that Sam Pittman leaves at Arkansas is one that you, me, and everyone can think positively about. Because I'd much rather look fondly upon Sam Pittman in a positive way than look back on him and say, man, what a mistake that was. I'll tell you what, he's meeting with the media today, and I want to talk about some of the things that he may be saying or things I'd like to hear from him. So we'll talk about that next. Stay with us here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. All right, Razorback fans, if you're trying to stay on top of your routine, whether that's workouts, long days on campus, or staying focused through back-to-back classes, hydration truly is where it all starts, and that's where Drip Drop comes in. Drip Drop is a doctor-developed and scientifically proven for fast hydration. It uses the perfect balance of sodium electrolytes and glucose to help keep your body absorbed in fluids quickly, delivering 3 times the electrolytes and half the sugar of a leading sports drink. The thing is that whenever you're going around town and you're doing a lot of stuff, especially when it's hot outside, sometimes you don't realize how important hydration is to you and how much your body needs it. And I can tell you, as someone for experience, and someone that has a problem with dehydration, Drip Drop definitely helps because it keeps me going. And there's nothing worse than feeling dehydrated because your body starts to shut down. You start to have these issues where you can't sleep as well. You can't function as well. You start to just feel all out of sorts. Well, don't worry about it because Drip Drop's going to help you out with that incredibly. and they're offering all you Locked On listeners 20% off your first order. So just head to dripdrop.com and use promo code LOCKEDONCollege. That's dripdrop.com, promo code LOCKEDONCollege for 20% off. Stock up now before the heat continues to hit hard. All right, moving on into the next segment of the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. So we know that Sam Pittman's meeting with the media today, and we know Ben Souders as well. And I'm not going to sit here and try to be like, oh, man, this is what we need to hear from Pittman today because, all we got to hear from was a little bit at SEC Media Days, and it's so different now, and he's going to come out there and really drop some hammers on some stuff. I don't know. What I'm hoping, though, that we don't hear, this is the main thing that I'm hoping we don't hear. I hope we don't hear about any other major injuries. I'm hoping we don't hear about somebody who hurt themselves in practice or in workouts anymore, because Ismail Cece was one that hurt himself in a workout, and from my understanding, he's going to be out for the majority of the year. I think it's what Sam Pittman said too. So my hope is that that's not what we hear. We don't hear any injuries, any injury news, anything like that. We're good on that front. But I'm also going to be curious if anyone asks, and before you all get mad at me saying like, well, why don't you ask? Because I don't get invited to press conferences anymore. But I'll be curious to see if he does respond to something we talked about yesterday dealing with Rhett Lashley, the Feinbaum comments and all of that. I'm curious to see if that gets brought up to him. He probably won't. I'll appreciate it if it does, because I just like to hear his response. But overall, I just feel like it's probably just going to be like, it's fine, whatever. So maybe we get a little bit of that. But what I also want to hear from Pittman, though, is this fall camp, is it going to be business as usual? Is it going to be similar to what it was last year? Or are you mixing things up a bit? Not saying they have to, but are there going to be any major changes? The only real thing that I saw, at least from the practice schedule, is that they're going to be meeting or practicing at 6:20 in the morning on Friday, which is wild. Never seen that. The media usually can show up for that, but this one, I don't know. Media will be there, but it's going to be an early one. But after that, it seems to be going back to normal when it's 9 o'clock in the morning. Then when classes start up, they'll probably adjust it from there. So either way, it's a development to where it's like, okay, we know fall camp's here, but after last season, keeping pretty much the entire same coaching staff, what changes? Does anything change? Is anything going differently? I guess we'll see. But what did you learn from last year in the fall camp? Is there stuff that you did like, stuff that you didn't like? Were there timing things? Were there drills? Were there the way you handled the backup quarterbacks? Were there the way that you handled the running backs? Are you doing anything particularly different when it comes to making sure guys maintain their health and maintain, trying to stay as healthy as possible? Because I'm going to tell you right now, folks, like anybody that gets mad about injuries in fall camp or whatever, more often than not, it's no one's fault. It's, sometimes people are just like, oh man, strength and conditioning, there must be a problem because we've had 2 people break their feet over the past couple of years. Like sometimes it's just unfortunate coincidences. It happens. I really hope it doesn't happen with Arkansas this year. They don't have enough depth as it is to be able to overcome it. But I'm hoping that they're just able to go through it like normal and take care of business that way. So I'm going to be curious if they're changing anything up or if they're addressing that or doing anything differently to address it or however it's going to be approached. So that'll be a pretty fascinating thing. I want to know more about the approach that they'll have with offense and defense. What I mean by that is, from my understanding, Petrino, when he was the coach at Arkansas, the head coach at Arkansas, he made a very important point that the quarterback would always be put in a position to succeed a lot easier in those practices. And what I mean by that is that if there was a defender that came in and tried to pick him off, then it was like almost frowned upon in a weird way. And I know that may sound weird to you because it did to me, but the results showed. So, is that something that goes on with Arkansas right now? Is that something that Petrino's like, hey, I need Travis Williams to lay off a little bit because we're going to be doing this? Is it something to that extent? Is Pittman going to be right there hand in hand with the offensive line again like he was in fall camp last year, where he's letting all the other coaches coach, but wherever Pittman's at, instead of just, walking down back and forth, he's staying with the offensive lineman and making sure that goes through. Maybe that's the case. So just seeing if there's anything different or there are any differences for Pittman and for the team practices, or if they're the same. And I'm going to tell you right now, if they are the same, if he's saying, no, nothing different, I'm not going to be mad. I'm not going to be outraged saying, this is stupid. Oh, geez, I guess we're going to lose games again. That's fine. Like, it's more of a curiosity thing than anything. I'm just curious of how they're going to approach it. But I wish I could go there and we see how, like Mateos, because Mateos was always one of my favorite coaches to watch in practices because he's a very intense guy that cares a whole lot and loves Arkansas and loves the Razorbacks. And, he came into a very unique situation. Now he lost a lot of his offensive linemen from last year's team. So does he feel better about it? Is he feeling stronger about who he's got? Fernando Carmona is the big guy coming back. So is it going to be something that he feels good about? Time will tell. But either way, I'm excited. I'm excited to hear about him. I'm excited to see the reports and excited to see some of these scrimmages. And man, fall camp, it's here. It is here. We'll get some basketball talk. Bracketology. It's so stupid, but it's so fun. So let's talk about it next on Locked On Razorbacks podcast. All right, so final segment here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. So Razorback basketball, we know it's so far away. But Joe Lenardi does his bracketology, which is in July. Such an absurd notion, especially if something's changed. It's like, what has changed over the past few weeks or months since he updated it? Well, something did because he moved up Arkansas to a 4 seed. Previously, they were a 5 seed. Now he's got them as a 4 seed. Must have seen some practices or heard from Cal or something like that. But either way, I'm not bringing this up because I'm like, oh man, let's break down the nuance and everything like that. But it was something that I was discussing on Inside Arkansas Live yesterday. I'm looking at the tournament. And it's like, man, could you imagine if Arkansas had to face this 1 seed or this 1 seed, or whoever? And I started going through it. I'm like, wait a minute. A lot of these teams that are going to be considered to be some of the best teams in the country, Arkansas is facing in the regular season this year. Like Duke. Yeah, Arkansas is facing them. Houston. Yeah, Arkansas is playing them. Florida. Yep, Arkansas is playing them. And throw in the other teams too, the other SEC teams that are going to be really good, or at least ones that are considered that they're going to be good. So those into the mix. Some that potentially could end up being, like a Michigan State. Is that going to be a team that's going to be a force to be reckoned with? Time will tell. But it's just amazing how there's a chance that if you do make it far into the tournament, teams that you may end up playing will be teams that you already played. Is that good? Is that bad? Is that whatever? I just want to make it far into the tournament as possible. But I also wonder, I've been spoiled. We've been spoiled, but I've been spoiled especially. I forgot what it's like to lose in the first weekend, Since really Arkansas started going to tournaments in the 2020s, they have not lost in the first weekend. They've only missed the tournament once. And the other 4 times, they made it at least to the Sweet 16. Made the Sweet 16 4 times and then to the Elite 8 twice. Should have been 3 times, but we won't bring that back up. Point is, I've been spoiled with that. And so almost look at it to where it's not even a thing. It's not even a possibility. But what's more likely for Arkansas to go to the Final Four or Arkansas to lose in the first round? Final Four. I'm going to be arrogant about it. I'm going to be spoiled about it. They're going to the Final Four. It's fine. Get your tickets to Indy. Let's go. Why not? Let's make it fun. But I love football. Football's my favorite sport. But it's hard to beat the excitement for Razorback basketball right now with John Calipari going into year 2. It's really hard to beat. That's for sure. Appreciate each and every one of you listening in and watching into the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or on Google Play. You can also get after me on Twitter at John Nabors Show for any questions, comments, concerns that you may have. We'll keep it going from there. Same podcast time, same podcast channel tomorrow afternoon. Have a great day, everybody. See you then.